Benjamin Zephaniah there talking to our Lincolnshire political reporter Sharon Edwards. Now I'm joined here live in York by Andrew Waller, the Liberal Democrat leader of the council, and James Alexander, the Labour leader. First of all, Andrew Waller, librarians, their professional organisations say that they are always the ones that cop for it whenever there's any squeeze on spending at local authorities. Have they got a point?
Well, I think nationally that is the case, that very often discretionary budgets like that are the first to be under threat. But in York we've trialled some very innovative working with the new Explore system. The Central Library was revamped with money, half of which came from Aviva, as part of their commitment to the local community. So we're looking at different ways of working, bringing in more people to use the libraries and different services provided out of them.
But doesn't that basically mean that you spend all your money on big central libraries and shut down the smaller ones?
No, what we're looking at is how we can retain the 14 libraries across the whole city, working in different ways in each of them.
James Alexander, are you concerned about the futures of libraries and museums and the arts in general?
I'm very concerned. I mean, we've got a very difficult budget coming up due to cuts from this government coming forward. And Andrew's party is putting forward a budget where culture and museums are just not listed as one of the 5 priorities they're putting forward.
But let's be fair, over the last 10 years, there has been a squeeze on libraries. We've seen about 5% of libraries across the country shut down. That was under a Labour government.
Indeed, and it's a very difficult time. But in York, during the last 8 years that Andrew's party has been in control, they've had an extra £52 million. And yet on top of that, we're now going to see reductions in those services. And I don't think Andrew's being honest with the public over the scale of the cuts coming. Executive members have told officers of the council to not undertake any review of library services until after the local elections, by which time we have a budget that's gone forward that may not allow those services to continue in the long term.
In a sense, is it embarrassing for parties like yours that are now in power at national level that are having to squeeze things like this that are seen as national treasures?
We knew this was going to happen not long after I became leader in 2008. We set up the More for York efficiency programme because we knew whoever won the general election, there were going to be significant cuts to public sector expenditure. So we've been working for a system now that this year will deliver £7 million in savings, and that's something we're going to take forward.
Is spending the only thing that we talk about here? Because we saw in that film in Lincolnshire, volunteers play a big part in libraries down there. Do you see that happening here?
Well, I'm not going to rule it out, but the objective is to retain the 14 libraries. But in general terms, we are looking at how, in other services, we can work with the voluntary sector.
You don't seem very enthusiastic, though, as far as libraries are concerned.
I think people expect the current system to survive, and that's what we're going out to do.
Big society, those are the buzzwords. Your party isn't exactly in favour. Would you expect volunteers to take a bigger part?
I would expect volunteers to have a bigger part in service delivery to be able to bring down costs. I've been down to Labour Lambeth to have a look at the cooperative model approach going forward, and if we were successful in the local elections next year, we would like to be able to see such things happen, to be able to retain the services for vulnerable people, because we know the scale of the task that's coming. I've pushed forward to Andrew to put forward a 2-year budget so that we can be clear with the public on what's happening, and he's not willing to do so.
Gentlemen, it looks as though the local government election campaign's already started. Well, from here in York, no doubt we'll be looking very closely at what's going to happen in 8 days' time. But for the meantime, it's back to you in the studio.